April 24, 1951, 11:47 a.m., 30,000 feet above the Yalu River, North Korea. Captain James Jabara feels the stick vibrate in his right hand as the F-86 Sabre hums beneath him, a sleek silver beast cutting through frozen air at 600 miles per hour. Below, the Yalu twists like a gray snake between North Korea and Manchuria. Above, pale blue sky and contrails. Then his radio crackles, "Jabara, brake right. Brake right now." And he reacts instantly, yanking the stick, for GS slamming him into the seat as the world spins and a MiG-15 flashes past his canopy, then another, then more, 6 in all. His wingman shouts through static that there are over 60 bandits inbound, and as Jabara scans the horizon his stomach drops at the sight of wave after wave of Soviet-built MiGs diving from the north, sunlight glinting off their swept wings, standard doctrine in overwhelming numbers. He warns the Sabre flights to stay tight, knowing there are barely 16 F-86s in the air, hopelessly outnumbered, every manual telling him to disengage, but something inside him refuses. A warning call snaps him back as a MiG dives on his tail, cannons firing, tracers streaking past his canopy. Jabara pulls hard, forces an overshoot, reverses, and fires, 6.50 calibers ripping the MiG apart as it spirals down. One down, dozens to go. The sky erupts into chaos, radio screams, twisting aircraft, smoke everywhere, as Jabara breathes steadily, flying on instinct and precision. He spots a MiG climbing too steeply, rolls inverted, dives onto its 6, locks the gun sight, and fires again, shattering the canopy and sending the jet plunging earthward. 2 down. But the numbers remain, and the MiGs aren't fleeing, they're hunting. Jabara snaps his head left and right, craning against the crushing GS as his neck muscles scream and sweat stings his eyes despite the freezing cockpit air. The MiGs aren't fighting like he expected. This isn't standard Soviet/N-run doctrine. These pilots are aggressive, turning hard, burning fuel, committing fully to the fight. Some of them are very good, maybe too good. A warning crackles over the radio that 3 MiGs are closing from his 8 o'clock low, and Jabara rolls the Sabre and pulls, the airframe groaning as the altimeter unwinds, 28,000, 26, 24 feet, bleeding altitude to gain speed and energy. The 3 MiGs climb toward him in a loose finger 4, setting up a classic pincer, so Jabara refuses to commit. Instead, he goes vertical, firewalling the throttle and hauling back until the nose points straight up, the J-47 engine screaming as the sky tunnels into gray vibration. The MiGs follow, and make the mistake of pulling too hard, bleeding speed until their noses fall through. Jabara crests the top, inverted, rolls out above them, and drops onto the trailing MiG, firing before the pilot can escape. Rounds walk up the fuselage, and the left wing shears away, 3. There's no time to watch it fall. Cannon fire rips the air beside him as the remaining MiGs reverse onto his tail, 37mm rounds close enough to taste. Jabara brakes hard left, pulling 6, then 7 GS, vision tunneling as his G-suit crushes his legs and he fights blackout with sheer will. A desperate voice calls for him over the radio as American formations collapse, MiGs scattering Sabres across 50 miles of sky, divide and conquer. Jabara rolls out alone into a pocket of empty air, just seconds of silence, then spots 2 MiGs below and ahead, unaware. He dives from the sun, speed building past 500 knots, fires, and the trailing MiG erupts in flame, 4. The lead MiG jinks hard, but Jabara stays with him, firing controlled bursts until the tail disintegrates and the aircraft snap rolls into an inverted spin, 5. His arms shake as he pulls up, adrenaline flooding him, the fight barely minutes old but feeling endless. Then he sees 4 Sabres trailing smoke, engines dying, diving south to escape. Maybe 12 Americans remain, against more than 50 MiGs. The radio dissolves into chaos, out of ammo, calls for help, ejection warnings. A distant Sabre explodes into fire and debris, and Jabara has no time to wonder who it was, because the MiGs aren't retreating. They're reforming. And they're coming straight for him. Jabara counts them as they close, 8, maybe 10, flying in a loose gaggle that isn't pretty or textbook but is effective, all converging on one target, him. His fuel gauge flashes in his mind, just under half tanks, reserves burned away by high G turns and constant throttle work, leaving him maybe 15 minutes of combat fuel before he has to run or become a glider. The smart play is obvious: run now, but the voices on the radio stop him, especially the broken call for help from Lieutenant Sizemore, 23, engaged, a face Jabara knows. The MiGs close fast, and Jabara decides he's not running. He points the nose straight at them, firewalling the throttle and charging headlong into superior numbers, defying every tactical manual ever written. The MiGs spread out to surround him, but Jabara doesn't try to track them all. He picks one, the lead MiG climbing for altitude, lets the pilot think he's taking the bait, then rolls inverted at the last second and fires into the MiG's vulnerable belly, flames erupting as the pilot ejects. 6. Cannon fire slashes past his canopy, a 23mm round tearing a hole in his wing, but Jabara jinks hard, forcing the MiGs to get in each other's way, swarming instead of coordinating. He spots two MiGs crossing close together, tunnel-visioned on another Sabre, and fires between them. One explodes, debris crippling the other. 7, 8. His ammo is almost gone now, seconds of trigger time left. A MiG flashes past so close he sees the pilot's helmet turn, then Jabara rolls, pulls inside the climb, and fires his final burst, shattering the cockpit. 9. His guns fall silent. Empty. 10 minutes of fuel, no ammunition, MiGs still circling, but they hesitate now, shaken by what one Sabre has done in minutes. Jabara calmly calls the radio, ordering surviving Sabres to rally on him, and one by one battered voices answer as 4 damaged jets form up on his wings. Shot up, low on fuel, mostly out of ammo, but still flying, still refusing to quit. And as the MiGs see those 5 silver jets holding together against impossible odds, for the first time in the fight, they blink. The sky seems to hold its breath for 10 or 15 seconds as the MiGs orbit at a distance, wary and uncertain, while 5 battered Sabres hold a steady southern heading, projecting a confidence none of their pilots truly feel. Jabara knows the truth: they're out of ammunition, critically low on fuel, finished by every rational measure, but the MiGs don't know that, and he orders his men to stay tight and sell the bluff. When a single MiG dives to probe them, Jabara turns straight into it, nose tracking as if ready to fire, and the MiG pilot breaks away. That hesitation spreads. More MiGs peel off, withdrawing north, and momentum shifts. When Sizemore's strained voice reports 2 MiGs on his tail, Jabara dives to help, leading 4 ammo-empty Sabres in a furious bluff that scares one MiG off and forces the other to disengage when Jabara fires empty guns. 6 damaged Sabres limp south together, and the remaining MiGs let them go. Only then does survival replace fighting. Jabara guides his ragged formation toward Kimpo, counting fuel minutes, monitoring failing systems, absorbing reports of lost aircraft and dead pilots, knowing they held the line against impossible odds. As Kimpo appears, his fuel needle trembles near empty, his Sabre barely controllable. He insists more land first, is overruled, smiles, and begins a straight-in emergency approach. The engine coughs, then dies completely at 1,000 feet, leaving him gliding a dead jet toward the runway. Trusting training, he holds the dive, drops gear, clears the fence, flares at the last second, slams onto steel planking, brakes hard, and stops with yards to spare. Emergency crews swarm him as he climbs out, legs shaking, staring at a Sabre riddled with holes and leaking fuel. When the base commander demands an explanation, Jabara simply says they ran into some MiGs, about 60, and admits to 9 confirmed kills. The colonel pauses, then smiles, telling him he has just become the first jet ace in American history and ordering him to debrief, because every general from Korea to Washington will want to hear the story. The mess hall is louder than usual, but the noise feels thin, forced laughter, trays clattering a little too hard, jokes that land and then die in the air. Someone shoves a plate into Jabara's hands. Meat, rice, something green. He eats without tasting it, nodding when spoken to, smiling when expected. Survivor's manners. Across the room, Sizemore sits hunched over his food, hands shaking slightly as he pours coffee. Moore has his boots off, socks drying near a heater, one foot wrapped in a field dressing. Nobody talks about tomorrow. Nobody needs to. Later, in his quarters, Jabara lies on his bunk staring at the ceiling. Every time he closes his eyes, the sky comes back, silver jets, crossing angles, flashes of cannon fire. He hears the click of empty guns again. That silence. The worst sound he knows. Sleep comes in fragments. When morning arrives, it does so without ceremony. 0600 hours. Briefing room. New grease pencil marks. New arrows. New call signs written and erased. The war, unimpressed by yesterday's heroics, moves on. Jabara straps in just before dawn. The canopy closes with its familiar thump, sealing him into the cockpit. The saber smells like oil and warm metal and yesterday's fear. He runs the checklist by muscle memory. Fuel. Instruments. Control surfaces. Everything answers back like it always has. Tower clears him for takeoff. The jet surges forward. The runway drops away. Korea spreads beneath him, mountains, rivers, scars carved into the earth by bombs and artillery. Somewhere beyond those ridgelines, MiGs are warming their engines too. Up here, he is calm again. This is the strange truth he never says out loud: fear lives on the ground. In the air, there is only work. He joins his flight at Angels 25. The radio crackles with routine calls. Nothing dramatic. Nothing historic. Just another patrol on a war that refuses to end. Minutes stretch. Then, bogies north. Multiple contacts. Jabara exhales slowly. Here we go. The sabers turn as one, noses lifting, sunlight glinting off their wings. Somewhere ahead, unseen but inevitable, the enemy is coming. Jabara tightens his grip on the stick. He is not thinking about medals. He is not thinking about newspapers. He is not thinking about rewriting books. He is thinking about angles. Energy. Distance. The man on his wing trusting him not to make the wrong call. History will decide what yesterday meant. Right now, all that matters is staying alive long enough to make it back, and making sure the men flying with him do too. The sky waits. And once again, James Jabara flies to meet it. 3 weeks later, Jabara stands at attention in front of a makeshift stage at Kimpo Air Base. Behind him, 200 airmen form neat rows. Pilots, mechanics, radio operators, the men who keep the war machine running. In front of him, General Otto P. Whalen pins the Distinguished Service Cross to his uniform. Cameras flash. A military band plays something patriotic. The ribbon is heavy against his chest, heavier than it should be for a piece of cloth and metal. Whalen steps back, salutes, and Jabara returns it crisply. The general leans in close, voice low enough that the cameras won't catch it. How many sorties since the engagement, Captain? 23, sir. And? 2 more confirmed kills. I'm at 15 now. Whalen's weathered face creases into something between a smile and a grimace. Keep that up and they'll have to invent new medals. But there's weight behind the words. They both know what he's really saying. Keep that up and you'll be dead before summer. The ceremony ends. Jabara shakes hands, accepts congratulations, poses for more photographs. His face aches from smiling. When it's finally over, he escapes to the flight line. His saber waits in her revetment. Not the same aircraft from that day. That one was scrapped, too damaged to salvage. This is a new bird, fresh from the factory, with Jabara stenciled below the canopy and 9 small red stars painted on the fuselage. 9 kills, the official count from April 24. He runs his hand along the wing. The metal is cold, perfect, unmarked by war. Penny for your thoughts, Captain. Jabara turns. Lieutenant Sizemore approaches, hands in his pockets, cap pushed back on his head. Just thinking, Jabara says. About? About how many of those MiG pilots made it home, about whether any of them are standing on a flight line right now, looking at their own aircraft, thinking the same things I'm thinking. Sizemore is quiet for a moment, then the hardest part about that day? It's not the fighting, not the fear, it's that I keep replaying it, wondering what I could have done differently, whether I made the right calls, whether I could have saved Richards or Polk. You couldn't have, Jabara says quietly. Nobody could have. They were in the wrong place at the wrong time. That's war. Is it? Sizemore's voice hardens. Or is it just chaos that we pretend has rules? Jabara doesn't have an answer for that. They stand together in the fading light, two men who survived something they shouldn't have, carrying weight that metals can't recognize. Sir, Sizemore says eventually. That thing you did, charging 60 MiGs with empty guns, that I need to know, were you scared? Jabara considers lying, considers giving the heroic answer, the one that will look good in the history books. Instead, he tells the truth. Terrified, every second that I thought I was going to die. Then why did you do it? Because if I didn't, you would have, and more, and everyone else who was counting on me. He pauses. And because sometimes the only way forward is through, even when the odds are impossible. Sizemore nods slowly. They're calling you the first jet ace in history. I know. How does it feel? Like I got lucky, like I had a good airplane and better training and a guardian angel working overtime. Jabara looks at the 9 red stars on his fuselage. And like I sent 9 men to their graves. They chose to be there, same as us. Doesn't make it easier. Sizemore doesn't argue, because there's no argument to make. The sun is setting now, painting the Korean sky in shades of orange and purple, beautiful if you ignore the war happening beneath it. You going up tomorrow? Sizemore asks. Dawn patrol, you? Same. They stand in silence a moment longer, then Sizemore salutes, not the formal, regulation kind, but the casual acknowledgement pilots give each other when words aren't enough. Jabara returns it. Sizemore walks away, leaving Jabara alone with his aircraft and his thoughts. 15 years later, Jabara will retire from the Air Force as a colonel. He'll settle in Wichita, marry a woman named Nina, raise a family. He'll speak occasionally at aviation events, always downplaying his role, always redirecting credit to his wingmen and ground crews. 50 years later, historians will study April 24, 1951, as a turning point in jet combat doctrine. They'll analyze his tactics, his decisions, his willingness to break every rule in pursuit of victory. 70 years later, fighter pilots at Nellis Air Force Base will study his engagement in tactical seminars, debating whether his actions were brilliant or reckless, whether he succeeded because of his skill or despite his choices. But all of that is distant future. Tonight on a Korean airfield in the spring of 1951, Captain James Jabara is just a man standing beside an airplane, watching the sun set on a day that changed everything. He thinks about the 60 MiGs that came for him. He thinks about the 9 that never made it home. He thinks about the impossible odds, the desperate gamble, the moment when he chose to charge into the darkness instead of running toward the light. And he wonders, as he'll wonder for the rest of his life, whether he was brave or just lucky, whether he was a hero or just a survivor, whether there's any real difference between the two. The wind picks up, cold and sharp, carrying the smell of aviation fuel and distant rain. Jabara zips his flight jacket, takes one last look at his aircraft, and walks back toward the operations building. Tomorrow, he'll fly again. Tomorrow, there will be more MiGs, more danger, more impossible decisions made at 600 miles per hour and 30,000 feet. Tomorrow, the war continues, but tonight, for just this one night, James Jabara allows himself to believe that what he did mattered, that the line he held made a difference, that the 9 men who died and the 5 who lived to fight another day weren't just statistics in a forgotten war, but proof that courage, real, terrified, human courage, can tip the balance when everything else says it shouldn't. That he doesn't know if he's right. But it's what he needs to believe to climb back into that cockpit when the sun rises. So he believes it, and in 12 hours, he'll prove it all over again.